So from the beginning class, we have use of this command. So I'll be a little quick in explaining these things. Okay, we have started with this. In Linux, primarily there are three types of users. Okay, so here if you observe this RWX, this is for the owner, who is the admin user here, and he belongs to a group called as admin user. Okay, this is the owner field, admin field. So this is the permissions, these three. There will be three permissions for every user. Okay, that is read, write, execute. In the same order, I mean the numeric notation would be 4 to 1. Read, write, execute 4 to 1. Okay, so the first three is for the owner. The next three is for the group to which this particular user belongs to, and the next three fields is for others other than owner, group, whoever rest is in the system. Last three fields are applicable for that user. Okay, now here so the basic permissions, these are the three. I'll just show you the numeric notation. Say you have something here, take common file. Alright, so if you want to change the permissions of this particular file, so we use chmod. So by default 777. Okay, each number 4 plus 2 plus 1, 4 plus 2 plus 1, 4 plus 2 plus 1 space file name. Okay, so there it will get RWX. Alright, so similarly, so this is the easiest way. Say if you want to change specific using, there is two different notations. One is the numeric way using chmod, another one is chmod say so user, group, others. Alright, so I'll handle user, u minus, I'll say x. Okay, common file. Now see what happened. So here x, I have taken x out of the permissions that the user has. So rw hyphen. Similarly, if I want to give it, say I want to remove it from group now. Alright, and I want to remove w. Okay, it got removed. So you can say if you want to perform two operations, okay, you can use the comma separated one, o minus rwx. Okay, so everything has been removed. So these are two notations. Okay, you can grant read, write, execute permissions. So similarly, just like I have granted the permissions to normal users, you can grant it to the folders as well. Alright, so this is about permissions. Now, another important thing that you should remember about permissions is the umask value. Okay, there is something called umask. Okay, so that is the default permissions that are set when you create a file or a folder. Okay, see, touch F1, F2. So I've only created the files, I have not granted any permissions. So these files, they got created with some default permissions. Okay, so this is what your umask value is for. Okay, so by default every user will have a umask value. So say umask 2, I'll make it simple. Okay, now F3, F4, and then I'll create a directory dir1. Okay, ls-l. We'll take one example first. See, so this is how you have to calculate. By default, the total permissions, say if you have granted all permissions to everyone, that means owner all permission, read, write, execute 4 plus 2 plus 1 7, like that to the group, to the owner 777. Okay, so by default 777 is the maximum value that we can grant to everyone. Okay, so when we have set some umask value, you need to subtract the umask value from the maximum value in order to get the existing value. Okay, let me repeat. By default 777 is max that we can give. From this you need to subtract the umask, then you will get whatever resultant you get. Here it is 555. So ideally it should be 555. Whatever you have given, from that you need to subtract 222. Whatever result comes, so that will be the default value that will be set for the files as well as the directories. So here it is 444. Let me see what is assigned to the directory. Alright. So it seems there are, so for directory if you observe rwx, so here 2 is missing, here w2 is missing, here w2 is missing. Alright. So from the total value we need to subtract the umask in order to get the values for the default files and directories that we create. Okay. So if you want to change, so whatever manually using umask space numbers that I've given, so that is the temporary change. If you want to make a permanent change, what you can do is there is a file called under the home directory. Yeah, so we have files called bash_profile or bash rc, and this profile you can simply define here umask is equal to whatever value you want. So the next time you log in as this particular user, so all the variables here you can see, alias names, everything these get sourced. Okay, and automatically the new value will get picked up. Okay, so like the way we have declared path value, similarly we can define the umask value as a variable here, and automatically that will be assigned to the newly created files and directories. Okay, so here we have seen rwx, rwx. Okay, now we'll see how to create users and groups, and then we'll come back to this topic. Then we'll see suid, sgid, set user id. These are 2 bits that are set to the users groups, and then we'll see sticky bit. Okay, let's see how to create users and how to create groups now. So I've been opening this file. Alright, so this is the file if you create a particular user. Okay, so in the password file, so this is the file related to the users. So the moment we create a user, an entry gets created in the password file. Say in order to create a user, we go with user add command, user add, say John. Okay, so the next moment an entry got created here. So here this is the first field is the user, second field X, this is the password field, then we have the user ID, then we have a group ID. See, this group doesn't exist. The moment we create a user, the corresponding group with the same name, that is a private group for this particular user. Okay, so that group would get created automatically, and then we have that particular user's home directory, and this is the default shell that will be allocated when this particular user logs into the system. All right, so we'll see a couple of options here. Other than, so with respect, when you create a user, okay, there are 2 important files which would get updated. One is etc password, another one is etc shadow. Alright, see this. So there is an entry in the shadow. So I'll come back, I'll explain you the entries in the shadow file as well. And there is another file called etc group. Okay, this is the third file since a private group got created with the same name, there will be an entry in the group as well, and then G shadow. Okay, so all totally there are 4 configuration files: etc password, etc shadow, user related, etc group, etc G shadow is related to the groups. Okay, so I have just created a user called username John, and there are 4 important configuration files that I've showed you that would get updated: etc password, etc shadow, etc group, etc G shadow. Alright, now apart from these 4 configuration files, by default when we create a user using user add command, so under the home directory with the name of that particular user, with the name of that user, a folder would get created. Okay, and inside that folder you would get to see all the default files. Okay, every time you create a user, all these entries would get created inside that particular user's home directory. In fact, if you observe, right, so the same set of files are present inside etc skel as well. So if you ask me, when we create a user, so how does these files get generated? So by default, when a user gets created, all the default files that are part of etc skel, they will get copied to that user's home directory. So that these are the list of steps that would happen. So a folder will get created, content from skel will get copied to user's home directory, alright, and then all the 4 important configuration files would get updated. Okay, so we have already seen etc password file. Okay, here, so the password is not given. We have the user ID and we have the group ID, home directory, and the default shell. So for user add, we have used user add command. So there are obviously there would be a lot of arguments using which you can change the user ID. That means it would randomly generate IDs. If you observe all the users here, alright, in a typical Linux system, user IDs or group IDs less than 500, the first 500 would be allocated to the system users. Alright, mostly above 500, whatever users that we create, those user IDs would be more than 500, but it is possible to change the user ID and group ID as well. And now there is a question from Rajkumar: can the administrator or root see the password for any other user in the system? No, the root, even the root user, he cannot see the password, but the root user or the administrator can change the password of other users. Alright, we'll see that as well. So here password is not present, okay, but password is stored in the system in an encrypted format. For that, you need to go to this place. First of all, I have not set the password for the user John. Alright, let me quickly set it. See, now I'm a root user, right, and I'm setting a password for John. All tokens successfully updated. Okay, now you can see the encrypted password. Now the question that you asked, again changing password for John. Again updated. Again the shadow file will also get updated. Okay, so the root user cannot see it, but he can change the password of the normal users. Okay, and here let's see the other parameters here. If you observe, right, the username and the password, and here there are some other options. We'll see what these options are. So they are related to the password aging policy, right? So how long the password should be active, or when was the last time the user has changed the password, like that. We have a command. We will see that command. Okay, for that ls-l etc shadow. Okay, what I'll do is I'll open two terminals so that I can parallelly execute and show you if others can access it. Okay. I mean, you can already see that there are no permissions, right? Completely they are blank. That means no permissions has been given to any user. So by default, it's like if you count this, the first hyphen will be for, it says whether it is a file or directory, and then you have 1, 2, 3 for owner, and then next 3 for group, and the next 3 for others. So even though the owner is root here and no permissions are set, root by default can access any file or folder. It's only for the root user, even if permissions are not set, he can access the files. Okay. All right. So now we are done with this. Yes, root can change the permissions as well. Root user, I mean, is the administrator. He can perform any kind of operations and rest. Alright, what I'll do is I'll quickly delete the user now. Oops. User del. So just like user creation process, even during user deletion, all the 4 files will be modified. I'll show only one file, so there is no user here. Okay. Then we need to check home directory. Okay. So the folder and the content are still present. Okay. So what we'll do is, so for that, user add John. I've added again. See here, this message says the home directory already exists. Okay, because this did not get deleted last time. So not copying any file from skel directory. So it's clear that /etc/skel is the directory that contains all the default files that would get copied to user's home directory. So what you can try doing is, say you set up a network, and by default, by the time you create a user, you want some default files to be present in that user's home directory. So what you can try doing is keep some files inside etc skel and try create users, see if they get copied automatically or not. Maybe that's something you can try. Alright, so now I've created the user again. Since the folder is already present, the files are not copied now. So if you want to delete a user along with the home directory, so you need to use the -r option. Alright, so that will delete all the files as well. Okay, so this is how we individually what we can do is, as the root user, you can change the default shell that is assigned to the users. Alright, I think I have not shown this before. So there is a command, we'll see this, echo $shell, it's bin bash. Okay, so what I want to do is then I showed you this file etc shells. This is the list of shells, but we need to cross check whether these are present or not, the corresponding. Alright, bin bash csh dash. Alright, these are present. So there is a command called chsh. Alright, then bin dash. Okay, now I need to exit out of the system, log out and then logging back. Then automatically by default I'll be able to use the bin dash shell. Okay, so this is how you can switch shells if you want to. So the primary thing that you would observe when you switch from bash to other shells would be with respect to the features. Like here, whatever previous commands that you can see, those features wouldn't be available, and we have this control R option where we can reverse search the commands that we have used. Those options are not available. Like that, most of the command line features that are helpful for you, they'll not be available with respect to the other shells. So that's why most of the time we stick to the bash shell. Now that we have created the users, okay, so you have been seeing me using su command a lot. Su is for switching from one user to another user, right? So su admin user. So there are only two important things with su. So one is when you have switched to admin user using the default su command, what is the working directory where you have landed in? Alright, it is /root. Previously you were under /root itself. Okay, the second thing is su space -admin user. Okay, now you are under the home directory. So it's up to you. If you want to move to the home directory, you select -, else you stick to this itself. Okay, so this is about su. Now there is another important feature that is the sudo feature. So it is mainly used in order to perform some restricted admin tasks in the system. Alright, so that would be used like in most of the Linux administration tasks. So rather than directly logging into the system as a root user, what we do is either you grant access to some specific users who are part of the admin group. So what you do is you create a group and you add some users to that group, and for these users you give some restricted admin access. Alright, then those users can handle the admin job for you, rather than, it is not at all recommended to log in and perform the root tasks as a root user. So the most important file with respect to this is etc sudo. Alright, here so if you observe here, so there are a lot of there would be by default only one user that is configured here. Alright, so allow root to perform all kinds of operations, okay, and all the shells anywhere in the system. Alright, so this is the only configuration available. So this is where we need to define either the groups or the users who can be granted sudo access. Once you grant a sudo access in this file, automatically the user will get sudo access. Then in order to perform an operation, I'll give you a quick example. Say I use it config, fdisk-l, it's working. Oh, it's root admin user. Okay, so fdisk-l will not work because he doesn't have sufficient privileges. Okay, whereas the same will give me output if I run as a root user. So what I can do is, so I can grant permissions to this user John so that he'll be able to perform a similar operation. Alright, so then once the privileges are granted, you need to use sudo. Alright, So reconfirm, he has to give his password. Alright. Oops. Okay, so this is the process. So every time you use the sudo command, okay, for not only this, if you want to perform some partitions or if you want to configure some network, alright, so all these features, they can be categorized and the corresponding commands can be granted access to. So by default, when you use a sudo, the system will warn you because you will be performing admin tasks. Then you need to give the password. Since John is not part of the sudo file, this command will not get executed. So what I'll do is I'll quickly make changes in sudo hours. Okay. Sorry. So actually, we do not edit this particular file directly. etc sudo hours. Okay. There is a command called vi sudo. Okay. So you need to use that command, and when you open the file, you can get to see all the list of categorized commands with respect to networking. Okay, so there is an alias name. What you can do is you can simply remove the hash. So you have this alias, you can simply assign this alias word to that user. So let us go with the default way of, we'll take a simple example. Here it is. Okay, and this is very important. You are not supposed to directly modify etc sudo hours file. Okay, okay. So you have seen here, once I have added the user to the sudo hours list. Okay, this command has got executed. All right, so like this you can create a user in your system and grant sudo access. So by default, if you're performing an Ubuntu installation, the Ubuntu user will have a default sudo access. Okay, and okay, here what we can do is, if we have to perform, if you want to give individual, if you want to grant individual access, right? Say here we have multiple things. See, for networking, there is already an alias that got created. You can simply unhash, remove the hash, and you can add this networking in the last line. Instead of all, you can add that over there. Alright, okay, you take this particular example. Okay, so for all system related, okay, services, this is how the permissions are granted. Okay, this is a better example for you. So similarly, what you can do is you can create some 4 or 5 users. Okay, so here, okay, so Rajkumar, here for the root user, all permissions have been granted. Okay, he is able to execute each and every permission, every command in the system. He can do anything in the system, right? For John, I showed you how to initially I have used the sudo command in order to execute fdisk-l, but he was unable to execute that before. It thrown an error that this particular user is not in the sudo list. Okay, so after that what I did was I've simply added him and I've granted him all permissions here. Okay, see here, there is a group called users. Okay, so here it is clear that allow members of the users group to mount and unmount the CD-ROM as a root user. Alright, so percentage users, this is the group. So all members of this group will be able to execute these commands. Okay, similarly, so it is the group declaration here. Okay, similarly there is another group called sys. Okay, so all members of this sys group will be able to run all the commands that are present as a part of these alias names. Alright, so you can quickly start creating normal user. Okay, and then you can say the syntax is the same, all, even if it is a group or a particular user. Okay, and then you can see no password means you can give this okay, you are referring to the one where the sudo should not be asked for a password, right? Okay, but by default in all the cases it is mandatory, so no password is usually given. If you observe here, right, there is a no login shell, correspondingly there is a no password option which will be given for system processes. But users usually, I mean, you can, if you are setting up your network, maybe you can configure it. Yes, this option would help you enable that feature. Alright, so like that, here you can create multiple alias names, you can create groups, add users to that group and add the group here. Okay, and then you can test out all the individual aliases if the users are able to execute those specific set of commands or not. Okay, let's quickly see. Okay, so some of the other options which you can see in the PPT is so if you want to see, this field is empty here. Alright, so if you want to specify something, some comments about the user, so you can do that using the -c argument. I missed that argument. Okay, and the next thing is regarding the groups. Okay, so by default this group gets created. So there is an option called -n. So John, maybe. Now, so what we can do is we can group, you can bypass the user from creating a default group. So here the user ID is 505, but he's not part of the group ID which is 505. Okay, so I'm So there is a default group in your system, that is users. We have seen the same ID in the etc sudo, in the sudoers file. There is a percentage users group, right? So by default, if you don't want a user to be part of his private group, what you can do is you can simply use -n option, then automatically he'll be part of the default users group in the system. Okay. Similarly, well, what I will do is we'll just quickly, it's about adding users and then adding the groups, some of the basic commands. If there is something to explain deep about any of the topic, I'll go through, I'll show that, but now I'll just take you through the PPTs. Yeah, so here, so as you have asked me, can we change the user ID, can we change the group ID? Similarly, can I have a different home directory other than the one that gets generated under /home? Okay, so for that there is an argument. Like that, you can even change the default shell that you want at the time of creating the user or even after creating the user. So we have seen chsh, right? Right, see this admin user. Okay, so what I did using chsh, I have changed the default shell, right? So similarly, so at the time of creating the user, you can change the default shell, you can change the home directory, so and you can change the user ID, group ID. Similarly, after creating the user also, you can change these values. Okay, so user add is the command which you will use if you want to make any changes. You add additional arguments at the time of creating the user, and user mod is the command which we can use to modify the existing entries of a particular user. Okay, so those entries would include all the values that we have seen so far. So the -d argument will change the home directory. Similarly, you can change the user ID. All right, so if you have observed here, as I've said before, okay, so top 100, 500 user or group IDs are reserved for system users and groups. Okay, so most of the users that you create, all of the users that you create will have user ID or group ID greater than 500. Okay, similarly, user del, we have seen this option. So if you use it by default, it will only delete the user and it will delete the user from all the. Deleting a user means deleting the entry of that user from the configuration files. Okay, but the home directory would remain, so you need to use -r option in order to remove the directory as well. Okay, so user del -r. Then we have something called -f. Even if the user is logged in, you can remove the user. Next, just like the set of commands, you can correlate them to group creation and group modification as well. All right, just like we have two files, etc password and shadow. Similarly, we have etc group and we'll see that. Okay, we have seen etc group, right? So this contains the group. The password is not given, so yes, it is possible to set up password for group as well. All right, and so this is the group ID, and these are the groups to which this particular user belongs to. All right, so once again, this is the user. Okay, so this user, this password is not displayed, and then you have your user ID, the group ID, and then the other groups that the user belongs to. So it is like every user will be part of one primary group, and he can be part of multiple secondary groups. Okay, he can be part of one primary and multiple secondary groups. So what we can do is we can create at the time of creating a user, we can say -g. I will make him as a part of the root, and the secondary I will put him in admin user. Okay, and say so I have just created a user, and he is part of his primary group is root, and his secondary group is Okay, let's see. I think he has been added to the default users. Maybe I did some mistake with my syntax. Okay, so let me check. All right, so that's fine. So you can simply go through other options which are here, so we can so all these arguments are helpful in adding the users. Similarly, like these two important configuration file, we have corresponding configuration files with respect to groups as well. So we have seen the group file. Then there is another file called gshadow that contains the encrypted group password if you have set the groups. All right. So see, in an organization, you can have multiple administrators. Okay, so if you want to restrict a particular group from restrict other admin users, okay, so from modifying the contents of that particular group, then what you can do is you can restrict passwords. It's like now we are simply talking about users and basic groups, but at an organization level they are much more complicated. You'll have multiple users and multiple groups based on organization, based on like that. A lot of different categories could be there. So there is a feature available, and we can make use of that feature right there. Okay, so here, yeah, you can see a group has been added with a group ID, or by default you can simply go. Let's see the difference between group add, new group. Okay, it has been given 505. If you observe, see here. So 505, it is a user ID that has been already allocated to Febby, but at the time of creating this user, I said no for creating the default group, so it has assigned 100. So the next available group ID is 505. So it will follow that particular order. Assign the next available group ID to the newly created group. Okay. So here. Okay. I will put 700 to oops, sorry, this is the user, so I have created a group called new group tail. So whatever group ID I want, that has been allocated. So that is how we can change the IDs for the corresponding. I mean, we can change the group IDs, and syntax is pretty much similar. As we can see here, we can add users to groups. We have seen how to add groups to users before using group mod or group add at the time of creation as well as after creation. Similarly, you can use this g passwd command in order to add users to the groups. Okay,